The origins of urine therapy reach deep into the earliest civilizations, where the human body was not only a biological organism, but also a sacred vessel through which the mysteries of nature and divinity were revealed. And urine, like other bodily fluids, was imbued with significance that extended far beyond waste. The first references to the medical and symbolic use of urine appear in Mesopotamian cuneiform tablets dating back to the 2nd millennium BCE, where healers of the Sumerian and Babylonian worlds included urine in their pharmacopoeia, often mixing it with herbs and minerals to treat wounds, skin conditions, and infections. In these contexts, the substance was perceived as a natural antiseptic, capable of cleansing and healing, and its efficacy was interpreted as a reflection of divine benevolence manifesting through the body itself. In ancient Egypt, urine held a diagnostic role, with physicians of the pharaonic court examining its color, smell, and clarity to determine internal states of health, a practice that foreshadowed uroscopy in later Greek and medieval medicine. But beyond diagnosis, evidence suggests that it also carried ritual and magical dimensions, as spells in the Ebers Papyrus and other texts sometimes included references to bodily fluids as vehicles of both impurity and purification, forces that could expel demons or invoke protection from gods like Sekhmet and Thoth. Ancient China, too, offers early glimpses of urine's role, with medical manuscripts from the Han Dynasty describing its use in poultices, eye treatments, and tonics. While Taoist alchemists occasionally experimented with urine and other excretions as part of their quest to distill the elixir of immortality, reflecting a worldview in which every product of the body was a microcosmic distillation of the larger cosmic energies of yin and yang. Yet it is in the Indian subcontinent that urine therapy finds its earliest and most elaborate codification. The Vedas, composed between 1500 and 1000 BCE, make references to the sacred cow's urine, Gomutra, as a purifier, a gift of the divine bovine that held a central place in ritual and medicine, while later Ayurvedic texts, including the Karaka Samhita and Sushruta Samhita, expanded on its applications for a wide array of diseases. Human urine, particularly in the tradition of Shivambu Kalpa Vidhi, was described as an inner elixir, a distillation of vital essence and a pathway to both physical health and spiritual awakening. These references indicate that by antiquity, urine therapy had already achieved a dual identity, as both a practical remedy and a symbolic practice, reflecting broader cultural attitudes toward the body, purity, and cosmic cycles. Even in the Greco-Roman world, which is often remembered for its rationalism, urine was never merely discarded. Hippocrates and Galen employed uroscopy as a central diagnostic art, and Roman naturalists like Pliny the Elder recorded uses of urine in treating burns, wounds, and even as a cosmetic for whitening teeth and bleaching fabrics, illustrating the blurred boundaries between medicine, hygiene, and everyday ritual. Taken together, these origins reveal that the earliest references to urine therapy were not isolated or eccentric, but part of a larger pattern of human thought, in which the body's own products were reintegrated into healing and spiritual practice, embodying the principle that nature wastes nothing, and that even what appears base may conceal hidden powers. Among all ancient civilizations, the Indian subcontinent offers the most detailed and philosophically sophisticated framework for urine therapy, situating it not merely as a folk remedy, but as a codified science within Ayurveda and as a spiritual discipline tied to yoga, asceticism, and the pursuit of liberation, where the practice of drinking one's own urine, called Shivambu Kalpa Vidhi, was elevated to the status of an inner sacrament. The Vedic foundation of Indian culture already emphasized the sanctity of the cow, whose urine, Gomutra, was considered a divine secretion, imbued with the powers of purity, protection, and healing. References in the Atharva Veda and later ritual manuals prescribed its use in purification ceremonies, agricultural rites, and household medicine, making it both a sacred and a practical substance, a bridge between health and ritual order. As Ayurveda developed into a comprehensive medical system between the 1st millennium BCE and the early centuries CE, scholars like Karaka and Sushruta included cow urine in their formulations, prescribing it for digestive disorders, skin ailments, infections, and as an adjunct in detoxifying herbal compounds, thereby giving urine a legitimate place within the canon of medical science. Yet the Indian tradition did not stop at cow urine. By the time of the medieval period, human urine, especially one's own, was integrated into yogic and ascetic disciplines. With the Dhamma Tantra, a Sanskrit text attributed to Lord Shiva's teachings to Parvati, offering one of the most extensive treatments of urine therapy, describing how drinking one's urine daily, combined with fasting, breathing exercises and meditation, could extend life, cure diseases and awaken spiritual insight. The practice was not merely medical but cosmological. In the logic of Ayurveda, urine was not waste, but a byproduct of digestion that carried the subtle essence of food and prana, vital energy, and by reabsorbing it, the practitioner recycled and refined his or her own vital forces, creating a closed-loop system of purification that mirrored the eternal cycles of nature and the universe. This philosophical framework allowed Indian thinkers to present urine therapy as both natural and divine, as both a bodily and a cosmic act. To drink urine was to affirm the unity of the microcosm and the macrocosm, the body and the cosmos, the self and the divine. The yogic dimensions of the practice further underscored its spiritual significance. Ascetics and sadhus who renounced worldly life often adopted Shivambu Kalpa as part of their austerities, seeing in it a means of transcending bodily aversion and cultivating detachment from social norms of purity and impurity, thereby advancing on the path to liberation. In this sense, urine therapy became a test of spiritual strength, requiring the practitioner to overcome disgust and embrace paradox, finding nectar in what the world calls filth, and thus breaking through illusion. Some yogic manuals even associated urine drinking with the awakening of Kundalini, the coiled energy at the base of the spine, claiming that the recycling of subtle essences facilitated the rising of energy through the chakras and opened the third eye, granting clairvoyance and spiritual vision. Indian traditions also integrated urine therapy into broader practices of fasting, upavasa, and cleansing, shodhana, where the body was purified not only through abstention, but through reabsorption. And this integration reveals a worldview in which the body is not a fallen prison of the soul, but a sacred tool for transformation, producing within itself the very medicine it requires. Beyond the ascetic communities, urine therapy also filtered into folk traditions, with rural households prescribing the morning urine of a child or adolescent as a cure for various ailments, a practice still attested in parts of India today, showing the continuity of ancient ideas in living cultural memory. Thus, the Indian tradition of urine therapy stands out not only for its antiquity, but for its remarkable synthesis of medicine, philosophy and spirituality. Ayurveda provided the medical justification, yogic philosophy provided the metaphysical framework, and ascetic practice provided the experiential discipline, all converging to make urine therapy a respected and profound practice. In this integration, we see how Indian culture could elevate a bodily act into a cosmic ritual, transforming what might seem base into a path of healing and transcendence, embodying the very essence of Indian philosophical thought, which sees unity in diversity, purity in impurity, and liberation through the transformation of the ordinary into the extraordinary. Urine therapy in the ancient Greco-Roman, Egyptian, and Middle Eastern worlds reflected a complex interplay of medical observation, folk practice, ritual symbolism, and philosophical speculation, showing that across these cultures, urine was never viewed as mere waste, but as a diagnostic fluid, a healing agent, and at times a sacred substance tied to cosmic order and divine will. In ancient Egypt, one of the earliest centers of medical thought, physicians who composed texts such as the Ebers Papyrus, c. 1550 BCE, and the Kahun gynecological papyrus used urine as both a diagnostic tool and a therapeutic medium, noting its changing colors, smells, and textures as indicators of pregnancy, kidney disease, or digestive disorders, while also recommending it in ointments and washes for wounds, burns, and eye conditions, reflecting a worldview in which bodily fluids were linked to both health and the powers of purification. The Egyptians believed that fluids carried spiritual forces, and rituals sometimes employed urine symbolically to banish evil or restore balance, suggesting that the line between magic and medicine was fluid itself. The Greco-Roman tradition inherited and systematized many of these ideas, especially through the Hippocratic corpus, but 5th-4th centuries BCE, where urine was central to uroscopy, the art of diagnosing internal imbalances through observation of excretions, a practice that would dominate Western medicine for centuries. In the Hippocratic and later Galenic framework, the body was governed by 4 humours: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile, and urine was interpreted as an external reflection of their inner harmony or disharmony, making it a vital key to understanding the hidden state of the body. Beyond diagnosis, however, urine had practical therapeutic roles in the Greco-Roman world. It was used as an antiseptic for wounds and burns, as a mouthwash and tooth whitener, thanks to its ammonia content, and as a cleanser for clothing and fabrics, indicating that its applications blurred the boundaries between medicine, hygiene, and daily life. Roman authors like Pliny the Elder in his Natural History catalogued urine's uses, while later physicians continued to prescribe it for ulcers, infections, and skin conditions, showing continuity between folk and elite medical knowledge. In the philosophical dimension, Stoic and naturalist thinkers did not directly advocate urine drinking, but their emphasis on living according to nature made them sympathetic to the principle of reusing what the body produced, while alchemical traditions in the later Hellenistic period began to experiment with bodily fluids, including urine, as potential carriers of hidden essences, precursors to later medieval European alchemy, where urine was used to extract salts and distill essential spirits. In the Middle East, urine therapy also had a long presence, both in folk practices and in scholarly medicine. The Arabian Peninsula preserved traditions of camel urine drinking, which were later incorporated into Islamic prophetic medicine, where the Prophet Muhammad is reported in hadiths to have recommended camel urine mixed with milk for certain ailments, a practice that remains alive in some Bedouin communities today. This recommendation carried not only medical, but also spiritual authority, as anything connected to prophetic practice was endowed with religious legitimacy, blending health with faith. Later Islamic physicians, such as Avicenna Ibn Sina in his Canon of Medicine, 11th century CE, analyzed urine extensively as a diagnostic fluid, continuing the Greek and Roman emphasis on uroscopy. But they also included urine in therapeutic recipes, acknowledging its antiseptic and cleansing properties. Meanwhile, in Mesopotamian and Assyrian traditions, older still, urine appears in cuneiform medical texts as part of remedies for scorpion stings, skin infections, and demonic afflictions, often combined with ritual incantations, suggesting that its role was as much magical as medicinal, embodying the belief that expelling impurity through the body also created a tool for fighting external impurity. Thus, across these civilizations, urine was embedded in a holistic worldview. In Egypt, it was tied to purification and divine order. In Greece and Rome, it was central to humoral theory and practical healing. In the Middle East, it bridged medicine and religion, folk practice and prophetic tradition. What unites these diverse approaches is the conviction that urine, far from being mere waste, was a valuable diagnostic and therapeutic substance, reflecting the hidden workings of the body and capable of restoring balance when applied wisely. Its uses reveal a broader cultural theme common to antiquity, that nature, including the body's own outputs, was a source of healing when rightly understood, and that what appears base may, under the right lens, embody wisdom and sacred power. Urine therapy in the cultural, philosophical, and spiritual dimensions of ancient civilizations reveals a profound pattern in human thought. What is despised by ordinary perception may be sanctified by deeper wisdom, and what appears as waste in the biological sense can, in the symbolic imagination, become a medicine, a sacrament, and a path to transcendence. To understand this, one must recognize that ancient societies rarely separated the physical from the metaphysical, the medical from the spiritual. The body was not simply flesh and blood, but a microcosm of the cosmos, a sacred theater in which divine cycles played out, and every secretion, including urine, was understood as a product of these cosmic processes. In India, the Vedic and Ayurvedic traditions most explicitly framed urine therapy in this way. Cow urine, Gomutra, was considered a gift of the cosmic mother, a purifier used in both ritual and medicine, while human urine, Shivambu, was described in yogic texts like the Dhamma Tantra as a self-secreted nectar that could align body and spirit, dissolve karma, and awaken higher consciousness, thereby transforming an act that provokes disgust into a sacrament of self-purification and spiritual ascent. The paradox of purity through impurity was a central philosophical theme. Yogis who drank their own urine did not simply seek physical healing, but actively confronted social taboos and inner aversions, training themselves to see unity where the ordinary mind saw division, thus breaking through illusion maya and moving closer to liberation moksha. This inversion of values, finding nectar in filth, wisdom in waste, is echoed in other traditions as well. Alchemists in the Greco-Roman and later Hellenistic world saw base substances as carriers of hidden essences, symbols of the transformation of the soul, and urine itself became an experimental medium for extracting salts and spirits, embodying the principle that degradation conceals potential for transmutation. Egyptian culture, with its strong emphasis on order, ma'at, and the expulsion of chaos, viewed urine as both impurity and purifier, using it in medical ointments and ritual acts to banish evil, thus framing it as a dual substance, embodying the tension between chaos and restoration. Among shamanic peoples of Central Asia and Siberia, urine acquired an explicitly spiritual role in visionary practices. As shamans drank the urine of those who had ingested the Amanita muscaria mushroom to recycle and share its psychoactive properties, turning urine into a medium of communal vision and spiritual communication with the spirit world, demonstrating that what left the body could re-enter as a channel of revelation. In the Middle East, prophetic medicine gave religious legitimacy to camel urine as a therapeutic substance, and though its use was primarily medical, it, sanctioned by the Prophet, endowed it with spiritual weight, embedding it in a worldview where healing, faith, and humility were inseparable. The broader philosophical symbolism here is striking. Across cultures, urine therapy forced practitioners to confront disgust, an emotion tied to social conditioning and ego, and by overcoming this aversion, they enacted a spiritual lesson of detachment, humility, and transcendence. By accepting the repulsive as nectar, the practitioner inverted worldly values, embodying a path of wisdom through paradox. This was not only psychological training, but also a ritual enactment of the deeper truth that purity and impurity are relative categories, and that unity lies beyond such dualities. Thus, urine therapy became more than a treatment. It was a philosophy, a meditation, a sacrament. It reminded ancient peoples that life cycles are continuous, that nothing is wasted in nature, and that within the human body lies not only disease but also cure, not only impurity but also salvation. In this sense, urine therapy reveals the spiritual psychology of ancient civilizations, showing how medicine, philosophy, and ritual fused into a single act that embodied humility, paradox, and transformation, teaching that what is rejected by the surface mind may carry the hidden keys to health, wisdom, and transcendence.